Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We are on our way to Aldbourne in Wiltshire. And we'll talk about the 101st Airborne and their billets and airfields that they used. Now, Aldbourne is here, so let's let's take off from Membury, and we're gonna end our trip today at the airfield called Pottery, which is here somewhere. Here we go. This is where we will finish our tour. But let's this is one of the airfields that was used, and then there were several others, so we'll add those to the flight plan. Let's just change the scroll to Aldbourne, just in case I forget anything. And what we want to do is go to a place called Ramsbury. No problem with these airfields, they're mostly now not used. So there's Ramsbury. Now, somewhere in this area there will be an airfield, or an old disused airfield. And I think it's this. That looks airfield-like to me, so we'll go. We'll add that to our list. Let's go. Actually, let's just take this one off. No, remove this one for now. Can I not? Let's just then come back here. Let's go back to Aldbourne. Okay, now let's have a look. From Ramsbury, I think we can go to Membury, which is where we've just taken off from. So let's go back to Membury. And then to a place called Welford, which is this place here. And then we can go to Aldermaston, which is this place here. We can go to Greenham Common, and a place called Merrifield, which might be difficult to find. I think it was. I think it's still active. So we'll try the code. go. No. Oh no. Okay. EDI. Is this it? Yeah. Okay, could be this. Okay. That seems complicated enough. Let's get into the air and see if we can get this. So the reason what I've just done there is you can see that the 101st Airborne, the 506th was billeted around Aldbourne and other areas, but the airfields that we discussed there were all used in the airlift to the D-Day drops. Let's get up in the air. Now, the first I think we should be good to go. So this is what it's like when you're trying to identify these places. And just pause here 1 second. Let's get up so we need to head south. So the first place we're going to is the former airfield of Ramsbury. Should be over here. I think you can see it here. Look on the on this sort of flat land. So this is one of the airfields used. It's a likelihood that the Easy Company wouldn't have gone too far from their billet. I'm just going to pause here, jump out. See if we can see this airfield here. This was RAF Ramsbury. It's quite difficult to make out. Any runways now. You've got a perimeter road that looks still to be there. It looks like maybe there was some old buildings here. This possibly could be a runway. You can see that north-south. Possibly another one here. So it's quite a small airfield. So I would expect that this is likely to have been another one down this way. that's now been overgrown. You can see there's definitely some taxiways here that's now being used by the farm. So this is Ramsey, and let's go now and check out Aldbourne. And whilst I'm actually here, I'm just going to pause. Let's get this flight director on. We'll put heading on for now. North sounds good. Okay, let's see if we can get the vertical speeds on. Right, this should be good. Let's pop the autopilot on. It just means I can talk a little bit without having to concentrate on the flying. We'll take off the gyro. Hit autopilot, hit heading. Whoa, that didn't look good. Try that again, keep it stable. Okay, that's better. Okay, we're going to head now to Aldbourne, so let's bring it back to here. And we'll see if it will capture the nav when we get there. Aldbourne, Wiltshire. Yes, Aldbourne is this is where primarily the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment was billeted, and they arrived in September 1943. Okay, here it is here. Let's just pause for a second. And then we'll have a look. So this is Aldbourne in Wiltshire. A small village. This is where Easy Company was billeted between September 1943 and May 1944, and then in May 1944 they moved down to RAF at Pottery. They arrived on the RMS Samaria in September 1943. This village hosted companies A and B of the 1st Battalion of the 506th and also the entire 2nd Battalion. And Easy Company was billeted in stables and homes in the village, and also surrounding the, so they were in the village here surrounding the church, which you can see here. This is not photogrammic imagery, but it is, so it's just decided to put something on there, but this is the church, and they were billeted around this area here. And they were also billeted in Nissen huts. And there was an interesting video I saw which had Dan Snow presenting, and he showed the military charity who do archaeological digs doing a survey of this recreation ground here. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description to that video. But if I forget, it's Dan Snow. You can probably find his video if you look at it. Very good. They a few years ago did a archaeological dig. I believe it was here on this corner, and they found the remnants of concrete posts where these Nissen huts, these sort of semicircular huts, were placed. Yeah, the dig was in 2019, and they actually found dog tags on their survey. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't someone that you was in the TV program, but it was someone from the Easy Company that basically had, I think, their blood type was wrong, or there was another guy who had his initials wrong, and they've also obviously had to have their dog tag replaced, and they just bent it in half and thrown it on the ground, and then 80 years later, it's discovered. So this was where Easy Company, the privates and NCOs were billeted. They carried on here with more intense training, much more combat training in this area. They did a lot of field orientation stuff, parachute jumps. When we were talking about Herbert Sobel, he, as you know, if you've seen the TV program, he's replaced prior to going into Normandy, but he was in charge, or put in charge, of the jump school that was set up nearby in a village called Chilton Folliot. Okay, so that is Aldbourne. The Easy Company would return here after Normandy, and prior to going into Holland for the market garden. And so now we're going on to former airfield RAF Membury, which is there. So just a pause here. And this is another airfield that was used. And you can see here a lot clearer. There's definitely a runway heading in this direction, north-south. The modern day M4 looks like it's just ploughed straight through it, but there's definitely one runway there, and we've now, I think this is Membury Services, but we've probably got another runway, probably grass, going this way. So, and another one likely in this direction here. This is again another one, so that's two now. It's interesting that the Easy Company sent all the way to a pottery, but these were used as well for the 101st. Let's continue. I'm just going to pull back this torque on the propeller. There we go. So we're now heading to Welford. So I changed the date. So we're talking here date-wise. We're now to June 1944. And location, we're going to go head now to Welford. Former RAF Welford. And that should now be coming up on the nose. These are all used by troop command, and here you can see this is the airfield below us now. So let's just jump out here, and you can see quite clearly there's a runway. Heading in this direction here. These I don't know how to describe them really. They're like figures of 8 concrete things. This is very you see these in many of these former RAF bases. I don't know what they're called, but they are probably got something to do with glider operations. Now, what I don't know this, so if anybody knows, then please put in a comment below. But to me, it makes sense that if you've got many aircraft, what you don't want is just them all to be lined up behind each other because of prop blasts and things like that. You could probably get, 2 or 3 aircraft on each diagonal. The prop blast is not hitting each other. You probably then have all the gliders lined up on the runway, ready to go, and then the plane pulls onto the runway, hooks up, and then is off. So I think these might be an indication that a lot of glider operations were happening from these airfields. I'm not sure what's going on with the rest of all these bunkers and stuff. These look like silos. This looks like there may be some military thing going along here. This could be some sort of storage for explosives or aircraft or something. This is maybe a modern day thing. These look like bomb-proof mounds for something. I'm not quite sure, but you can see there's a few runway here as well. So this is former RAF Welford. These are unusual. These definitely look like something that you park something in to protect it from bomb damage. But I don't think it's not World War II related. So anybody knows, then bung it in the comments below. Okay, so that was RAF Welford. Let's move on now to former RAF Aldermaston. Okay, so this is the detail going through on the bottom now about Aldermaston. Nearby airfield again, not too far away. Built in 1941. 1942. It's got 3 runways, and it was a base for RAF Bomber Command. It's transferred to the United States Air Force in August of 1942, and was initially allocated to 8th Air Force, and then to the 9th Air Force in 1943. Hosted troop carrier groups, the 60th Tactical Command Group, supporting Operation Torch in North Africa. D-Day, it was the site for the 434th, which towed 52 Hadrian gliders, which were the gliders for 101st Airborne. Now, I'm just going to pause here because we've just moved on to let me find. We've cut a corner. This is our former RAF Aldermaston. A very big airfield, much bigger than the other ones we've seen. Definitely got runway here, east-west. Got a north-south runway here. And possibly another one going in this direction here. This site, like many of the sites of the former RAF bases, this is was taken on. This is actually now the Atomics Weapon Research Establishment. You can see here these bunkers, and basically this is where the British make their nuclear weapons. It's very strategically placed. You have some interesting bunkers. I don't know what you want to call them, launch sites here. There's a very famous nuclear physicist who's buried in the church in this village here, which we'll probably talk about later. Very strategically placed airfields. The nuclear centre, basically, for Britain makes sense, puts us in the middle of the country. It, you know, if this gets hit, then everything's over anyway. But it's also got a lot of defenses because, you know, you haven't got anything on the periphery. And then just along the road, railway, or whatever you want to call it, just so happens to be one of the more famous airfields, which is Greenham Common. Famous from being the place where the United States nuclear strike capability was housed. You can see where their bombers were stationed. And I believe there's one big runway here, maybe two, maybe even three. It looks like possibly three, all in the same direction. I don't think there's an alternative one. I haven't seen plans of this. But this is probably one of the longest runways in Britain. And so that's Greenham Common. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll then discuss where the 506th 2nd Battalion took off from in RAF Wiltshire. So remember, if you like this content, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next section.